Okay, so we're going to be doing a review of the CNC X-WE wireless tattoo machine. So yeah, this is the box that it came in. Cool, so it looks nice. I like the foam and stuff around, looks kind of super professional. Feels kind of heavy, not got a nice weight to it, but not sort of too heavy. See, according to the site, it's 176 grams and the power pack's 37 grams. So you can check out all the specs and stuff. I'm not going to go over them too much because you can check them out on the website. But yeah, cool. Here are the battery packs. So it's the charging port. You plug that into, you get like a USB with it, and you plug it into your computer or phone charger, whatever it is. And I like how the batteries kind of just clip on with a magnet. Nice and sturdy. It's not going to come off during a tattoo at all. So that's cool. Let's take a look what's underneath. All right, so we've got an extra little box here. So a little accessory package, something like that. Cool, so there's our charger cable. So yeah, that's what you would plug the battery into. And that could, go in the back of your computer, phone charger, whatever it is. So that's cool. We've also got a little Allen key, a bunch of rubber bands with it as well. Sweet. So we've also got a little manual, which is cool. The thing I like about the manual is though, so on the batteries, it's got all these different colors, right? It doesn't have the actual amount of volts, but if you look inside the manual, then it has what voltage each color indicates. So you've got like the dark blue is 5 volts, and it goes all the way up to 11 volts, which is pretty cool. And it also tells you something else I like about this little manual that they give you. They tell you what voltage is recommended for what use case. So for example, like at 5 volts, it says, doing like foggy, sort of really light dot work kind of stuff. And then all the way down to 11 volts, it's got, that's what you use for lining and stuff like that. I probably wouldn't have it all the way at 11. I maybe pull it down to about 10. But yeah, it also tells you how long the charge lasts at each voltage, which is pretty cool. So for any like one that's kind of just starting out, this is really good to kind of just give you a guide of, what voltage should I be using for lining? What should I be using for packing, shading? And it kind of gives you all of that just here. I think the thing to remember when you're tattooing is that you can use any voltage to do any type of tattoo. It just means that the higher your volts, the quicker you've got to move your hand, and sort of the lower the volts, the slower you've got to move your hand. So, but no, it's a good starting point. So I like that. That's cool. Most machines you get don't kind of have that little guide, which is awesome. So this is awesome. The grip comes off. So if you had an autoclave, you could sterilize this. A lot of the pen machines, the top part won't come off. That means that you've got to wrap it super carefully. And if you're tattooing, you tilt your machine back, like if you're doing someone's back, then the ink can flow back into the machine. It can contaminate your machine. But because you can take the top off, and you can put that in your autoclave, which is really nice. But I know a lot of you guys don't have autoclaves, so what you'll have to do is you can put like a clip cord sleeve over the top to wrap it, which is really easy. That's what I love about the pen machines as well. You don't need like annoying machine bags to cover machines like this. You can literally just fit a clip cord sleeve over the top of it, and then tape it up at the front, and then it's kind of good to go. This comes with a 3.5mm stroke, which is kind of like a good all-rounder. One thing I didn't like though is when I took a look at the stroke, right? So these machines have an adjustable stroke. You can change them. I think they go from all the way from 3 all the way up to a 4. Don't quote me on that though. I know they've got like a bunch of different stroke variations, but right now it's at a 3.5, right? So this is kind of how the stroke works. Now, when I first opened it, it's got a lot of lubricant, but yeah, there's kind of like a lot of it in there, which is kind of weird. You don't sort of see that in a lot of machines. So I'm not really used to using pen machines like this. I use injectors mostly throughout my tattooing. But yeah, it's got a lot of this weird kind of lubricant in it. But the thing that I really didn't like about the stroke, right? So in the manual, it specifically says, so when the way that you change a stroke is you take this little wheel off. So the way that you do that, right, they give you a little Allen key. And there's a tiny little screw just at the front there. So you unscrew it by unscrewing that. And there's supposed to be a small 2mm gap from the bottom of this stroke wheel to the machine. Now, the problem with that is, if you misjudge that when you are attaching the stroke wheel, then that's going to change the length of your stroke, because if this is sticking further out, it's going to be different. It's not going to be like, a 3.5, it might be a 3.7mm stroke or something like that. And also, it's really difficult to change, because like I'm trying to put the Allen key in it, it's just like, flipping around and I'm getting all this grease everywhere, which is, you know, really annoying. When changing a stroke, I like it to be kind of super easy. I don't like it to be kind of a really sort of annoying endeavor. But yeah, anyway, that's how you take it off. You just unscrew it like that. And then there's a little groove. It's kind of, it might be a bit hard to see, but just on the very edge of the pin, there's a little groove, and you're supposed to line that up with the bottom of the stroke wheel to get it to sit right. But yeah, that's really frustrating. Like, it's super hard to do because it just kind of twists when you try and hold it. And it's just kind of a real pain in the butt. Just screw it back on. And also, there's supposed to be a 2mm gap between the bottom of the stroke wheel and the machine. And if you don't have that gap, it's going to put pressure on the motor and it's going to wear out the machine really fast, which is what you don't want. So, and this machine costs, you know, $299. So the last thing you want to do is, you know, kind of wear it out. So cool, I've got my little gap. So there's no pressure on the motor. So you can see that there's this is wrong because there's no gap. What you want is, yeah, that 2mm gap, which is hard to judge. You know, if you're doing that by eye, it's it can be pretty difficult to get it right. And if you get it wrong, then it's going to change the length of your stroke. That's something that I definitely don't like about it. Cool, and it's not a direct drive motor, so it will have a bit of a softer hit. Something that I think is actually really cool as well. When I bought this machine, it came with 2 packs of free needles, which is really cool. You know, they didn't have to do that, but they chucked them in anyway. So yeah, it was cool. They threw in some free needles. So I was going to give them a try. These are the police cartridge. Interesting name. So these are 7-round liners, 10 gauge, good size liner. You do a lot of stuff with a 7. So you just kind of put the cartridges in. They're a bit kind of tight going in. That's a bit, yeah, it's real tight. You know, I've kind of got to jimmy it to get it out, which is good. You know, it's not going to come out during a tattoo, which is, you know, what you want. So yeah, it looks like you can only put the needles in the cartridge one way, because when you put them in this way, the needles kind of poke out. But when you do it the other way, it's all good. The needles go back inside the cartridge, which is, again, something I don't really like. So let's change that depth. I really don't like the depth changing mechanism. It doesn't kind of twist as well. Like, it's hard to kind of maneuver. So you just want to make sure that before you start like twisting the needle depth, the machine housing on the battery is screwed on really tight, because otherwise it's going to be really difficult to twist the needle depth. And I don't like how as well when you change the needle depth, the cartridge at the front kind of rotates, which is a bit annoying. You just want to make sure as well that when you do adjust your needle depth, that the needle fully retracts into the cartridge when it's off. Because if it doesn't, you're not going to get good inflow. So yeah, that's a good depth. It sounds pretty light, so that's cool. And you know, it's pretty sort of comfortable to like hold onto. I'm going to give it a whirl on some fake skin in a second. I'll wrap it up so it's a bit more comfortable to hold. But all in all, feels pretty comfortable. I don't like the way that you have to change the stroke, and it's a little bit difficult to get the cartridges in. I'm sure once you've had the machine a while, it might kind of loosen it up a little bit. But yeah, it just kind of frustrates me how if you put the needles in one way, then they don't fully retract into the cartridge. But when you put them in the other way, they kind of do, which is a bit weird to me. I don't really like that. The button's a bit stiff. Yeah, so you kind of got to really kind of dig in there to hit it. I don't really like that. I love just how something like it's kind of tap and click, but that's not that big of a deal. I'm sure I get used to it in time. But yeah, let's give this machine a try, put on some fake skin and see how it goes. All right, cool. So I've got the CNC machine all wrapped up, ready to go. One thing I will say though is just before you do start to use this machine, make sure you set your desired depth before you wrap it up. Just because with the clipboard sleeve on the outside, it does make it a bit difficult to twist and adjust the needle depth, because the machine's in 3 parts. You've got the initial grip, then there's the needle depth, and then there's also the motor housing where you can change the stroke. There's literally 3 parts that kind of twist and lock. So when you've got a plastic sleeve over it, it is a bit hard to kind of grab the one that you want and change the depth of it. So yeah, just be mindful of that. Set the depth before you get it wrapped up, and then it should make it a bit easier for you. Cool. So we're just going to start. We've got just a couple of traditional hands. Now this machine is a bit pricier than the Dragon Hawk, so we're going to see if it's got enough power to push a 14 liner. If it doesn't have enough power for that, I'm going to go down to the 7 and then just kind of use my 3 liner for the smaller details. I'm hoping it can push a 14, but we'll see how it goes. And then we're just going to lay in our blacks and then put some color in over the top of that, just like we do with the Dragonhawk. And as I'm using the machine, I'll just kind of give you my thoughts on it, how it feels when it's lining, shading, and packing. And then towards the end, I'll give you my final thoughts and whether or not I recommend the machine. So let's get stuck into it. Cool, so it took a bit of getting used to, but I was able to get the 14 lines in with it. It does have a fair bit more power than the Dragonhawk. You can turn it up quite a bit more. It definitely has like a stronger kick too. You can kind of tell where the extra money went when they made this machine. The only thing, sort of a couple things that I don't like actually is, so when you're using the machine, it just has lights instead of, I'm not sure if you can see it on the camera, but it just has lights instead of the actual voltage. I think this is something you get used to with time. But it would be nice to know the actual voltage that you're using, just because, yeah, when you're first kind of using it, after looking at the manual, when you get halfway through a tattoo, you'd have to like, oh, you know, what voltage is that? And you kind of have to look through it. And then, you know, right now it's just like kind of blinking a bunch of lights. And, you know, you kind of, does that mean that the batteries, you know, run low, or it's just a bit confusing. But again, once you've used the machine a couple of times, you definitely, you know, get used to that and it wouldn't be an issue. But just something I thought I'd point out. Also as well, the stroke, it says it's a 3.5 millimeter stroke, but it's kind of weird. Like it feels a little bit longer than that because I'm able to hang out a 14 liner enough to kind of float the needle and see what I'm doing, which I can't normally do on the Dragonhawk, which is supposed to also be a 3.5 millimeter stroke. So that was a bit unusual. Could just be the way the machine is built. But yeah, the 3.5 that it comes with, you can put in 14 lines. Pretty cool. Let's see how it goes with the small liner groupings, and then we'll chuck some black ins and then lay the color over the top. Okay, so I'm moving the machine down to 5 volts, and what I really like is that the Dragonhawk only goes down to 6, but with this you can get the machine down to 5, which means when you're doing your peppery shading for the traditional type pieces, you can get that real kind of dotted peppery effect. It's better than what you can do with the Dragonhawk, so that's another thing I like about it. You can see as I flick it out, the gap between the dots is huge, which is what gives you those really nice kind of smooth fades when you're whipping out your blacks. Cool, so just put the blacks in and it's looking good. I love how you can turn the machine down real low and get those nice peppery shades in. It hits the skin well. It's got a lot of power, but when you turn down the volts, that's not as bad. I love that it's an adjustable stroke too. So when you purchase it, it only comes with a 3.5 millimeter, which is kind of like an all-rounder. You can use it for lining, packing, and shading, mostly just packing. But if you were to change that to something like a 3 millimeter stroke or like a 2.8, then you could get even sort of softer, even kind of lighter shades. So that's awesome. We'll see how it goes with color. I'm just going to be using a 12 gauge 15 mag long taper from T-Tech, and I'll have to change the depth a bit because every cartridge is different. Okay, so I've just been messing around with the depth, right? So I like to use T-Tech cartridges for my shading, a 12 gauge, and just because this could be a thing with the cartridge, but I've set it to the max depth and it still kind of doesn't come out as far as I generally like it to. I can still work with it, but it just means I'm going to have a little bit less visibility. I'm going to have to kind of ride the tip. As opposed to floating the needles, but yeah, I didn't have that problem with the Dragonhawk. I was able to get them out far enough by adjusting the depth, but maxed out the settings on the WE, so let's see how it goes.
Okay, so it looks like I've had an issue midway through the tattoo. What's happened is that the screw on the stroke wheel has come loose. So I'm just gonna have to retighten that. Really, I'm not a huge fan of the way that they have the adjustable stroke. And it's kind of annoying. Yeah, it's very difficult to adjust. The way that they change the stroke, I really don't like. Cool, so I've just finished the tattoo, the CNC WE, just the shaking hands there. And all in all, there's a few things I liked about the machine, there's a few things that I didn't. So first of all, like it handles pretty well, but I really hate the way that it's designed. So when we take the sleeve off of the machine, because it's split into 3 different parts, you've got the battery part which twists, then you've got the battery housing which also twists, and then you've also got the needle depth, which also twists, which is like 3 parts of the machine that twist. So when you've got a clip cord sleeve on this and you're trying to adjust the depth mid-tattoo, you know, different parts of the machine will twist and it can be really difficult to set the depth, which is quite annoying. Yeah, midway through the tattoo, the bolt on the stroke wheel loosened up and then it just kind of, I had to retighten it. But also, you know, you have to set a perfect 2mm gap from the base of the wheel to the machine, which is really hard to judge by eye, especially if, you know, you're kind of just starting out and you're not sort of used to these types of machines. Yeah, so the price isn't bad, it's $269. Yeah, in terms of the price, so out of 10, I'd probably rate that a 6. It's not the cheapest machine, but it's definitely not the most expensive either. You can get machines way cheaper and way more expensive, so it's kind of, I'd say, middle of the range. And in terms of quality, now, because of the design, I didn't really like it. It performed well, it did a decent tattoo, but I'd probably have to give it, say, a 5 for quality, because I just didn't like the way that the design is and the way that the stroke's set up. I didn't like it. But in terms of how it handled, so lining, it was great for lining. I was able to get in solid 14 lines. It took me a bit of getting used to in the beginning, but I was able to get in those thicker needle groupings, which isn't always easy for these pen style machines. Also, the shading, it was fine. I was able to turn the volts down really low to get that really nice peppery shade, and it still ran at, you know, 5 volts, which was great. And in terms of packing, again, no troubles. I was using a 15 mag 12 gauge, so it's quite a large needle grouping and didn't have any trouble pushing it through into the fake skin. For the handling, I'd give it an 8. Line's great, pack's great, shade's great. It's a great all-rounder machine. It felt better than the Dragon Hawk when I was tattooing with it. It felt like I had a lot more power, so when I needed to, you know, put in those thicker needles, I could do it. And also, this is a bit unusual. Like, it says that this is a 3.5mm stroke. It also says that with the Dragon Hawk mask, but I was able to hang my needles out a lot further with this machine, and have them still retract into the tip of the cartridge, which was good. But I think it could be as well when you do adjust the stroke, if you have it too high or too low on that spinning wheel thing, it will change the length of your stroke. So just be mindful of that. In terms of would I recommend it? Probably not. That's not my most favorite machine, just because of the design. Like, it did do a decent tattoo, but you can get plenty more machines that handle just as well, that have a far better design. So yeah, probably not one that I'd recommend. CNC, they do have a bunch of other great machines, but yeah, just this one wasn't for me. And if I was starting out, it's not the machine I would get. So I hope that helps, guys, and I will see you in the next review. Take it easy.